last episode, which happened to also be our very first episode, we climbed aboard a train and we got to see the inside of the opulence of the Pullman train car. And we rode the rails all the way from New York down to Florida. We felt the rhythm of those tracks, caught glimpses of the landscape shifting outside the window. We got an idea as to why people would take the journey that was often excruciatingly long. And we got a taste of what travel looked like 100 years ago, at least for those who could afford a little comfort in their life. But every journey has a destination. So the question is, when people stepped off of that train and began pulling off all of those hot, huge clothes that they wore from up north, and their feet finally felt the sand, well, what did they see? What did they find here? Well, I'm glad you asked, because today we're going to be taking a walk down Main Street. My name is Beth Perdue. I'm your storyteller today, and this is Forgotten Threads. Now, before we get too far on our walk down Main Street, I need to tell you about a free download I've created. This was a lot of fun. I love creating things and I hope you enjoy it. In the last episode, I mentioned the word journal, and a little boy reached out to me through his grandmother and asked what a journal was. I thought that was a fantastic question. In my mind, a journal is a scrapbook for your thoughts. You know how sometimes you will collect things around the house, or you might find little treasures and you put them in a box and you want to keep them? That is kind of like a scrapbook of sorts, where you are finding little scraps of things and you're putting them together in order to remember a place, a time, or just a string of memories all together. Journals are really no different. Sometimes I think we take for granted that people actually still write, and journals are designed to be a written thing. So, there are many famous people who have done journals. And as a result, we understand a lot of the past because of what they took the time to write down. People like John Adams, who was one of our presidents, and Benjamin Franklin, but also Lois and Clark. Now, take a look at these amazing journal entries. Pretty cool, huh? They wrote about what they saw, but they also drew pictures to explain what they saw. So you can do anything you want to with a journal. I have seen people draw pictures in them. I have seen where people will add photos to them. You know, those tiny little cameras where you can take those one-shot film and put those into a journal. I have actually seen people, and this is a cool idea, they will take a little piece of clay, they will keep the clay with them. It does get super dirty, so you want to throw it away after each trip, but they'll take the little piece of clay or Play-Doh and they will squish it onto something. Like if they see a key hole, or they see a special sign that is embossed, they will take and push that clay onto it and then take that impression and they will put it onto a stamp pad and then stamp that into their journal and write the date and time. They will talk about where it was. It's really a unique way of doing a journal. So go to the website, the link is in the description, and sign up to get the free download, which is a journal, a travel journal that I've created for your next adventure. Take it with you or don't, but I think it would be really fun if people would get back into journaling, get back into talking about what they felt, what they saw, because 100 years from now, whatever you wrote down today, people could be looking back at that and going, wow, I had no idea that there was a building here, or there used to be some monument here that's not here anymore, or there used to be, I don't know, in the case of New Hampshire, a face on the mountain, and now it's not there. So write down the things that you see and the memories that you have while you're seeing them. I want to start with something I stumbled across while researching, and by researching, I mean wandering around an antique shop. This little postcard. It is dated February 2nd, 1921, and it was written from Winter Haven, Florida. Someone named Aunt Hattie wrote it. We have no idea who she was because there is no address, and I honestly have no idea if she even sent it to anyone. She might have just shoved it in her stuff and took it back home with her. I have no idea. But she gave us a view into Florida from 100 years ago, kind of a unique view, one that I know living here I probably take for granted. She wrote to a woman named Elizabeth, and this is what she said. Well, Elizabeth, the roses are blooming here and the birds are singing, all kinds of flowers. We eat lots of oranges. Winter Haven is the center of the largest orange section. We are near a lake, do our own housekeeping. The houses don't have any cellars and a good many do not have any upstairs. We have 3 bedrooms and a kitchen. Don't need to go up any steps. Aunt Hattie. I love this postcard so much. It's such a small thing, a few sentences written by hand, and yet you can picture Aunt Hattie perfectly. She's delighted. She has obviously come down from up north during winter. I cannot imagine what going through winter would have been like back then, with not all of the modern conveniences of having like those little hand warmers and all kinds of fun stuff when you go up north. But she came down here and she was amazed to find that the roses are blooming in February, which that's not unusual for us, but it would have been for her. There are oranges. The house has no basement. They're doing their own cleaning. There's no upstairs. I honestly have no idea why she mentioned that they did their own housekeeping. I guess that was special. I cannot tell for the life of me whether the people in the center of the image are in a horse-drawn carriage or an automobile. So I've stared at it. I've zoomed in. I am still not sure. I've posted a picture of this postcard on my website, and I want you to go take a look at it and tell me what you think. Seriously, go take a look at it, ForgottenThreads1912.com, and let me know what you think. Now, let's get back to Main Street. The moment I started researching this episode, one thing kept coming to my mind, and I realized I'm about to say something that could be controversial, so just stick with me for a second. I love Disney. I know. But here's the thing. The love of Disney isn't really about the rides or the characters. It's about the nostalgia. It's about the way they can drop you anywhere in the park and it restores a memory, a time, a place that you may never have actually visited, but somehow still recognize somewhere deep inside. There's something in every corner of that park for every kind of American. Maybe your favorite author was Samuel Clemens, and you've always felt a pull towards Frontierland. Maybe you grew up dreaming about space exploration, and maybe you just love a good roller coaster. But for a lot of people, and I think that this is true whether you'd admit it or not, it's Main Street USA that gets you. You step through those gates and there it is. The lamppost, the horse-drawn carriages, streetcar, if they still do that. The smell of popcorn drifting out of that fantastic little shop that's over to the right-hand side with a painted little sign over the door. In fact, pretty much all of the street down Main Street has painted windows. Something inside you recognizes it, even if you've never actually seen that or lived that part of your life. Well, that is not by accident. Walt Disney modeled Main Street after the turn-of-the-century Main Street of small-town America, and he did it intentionally because he knew that place lived in people somewhere in us. He knew that even generations removed, even people who had never experienced it firsthand would feel something when they saw it. He knew that when the grandparents walked through that door and saw that Main Street, that somehow it clicked something in their mind from 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Well, let's talk about some of that place and what it actually looked like. Every time I think about Main Street, I think about movies. And I think about some little towns that we have here in Florida, some things that I will definitely put a link to down in the description. Every American town, no matter how big or how young, has a Main Street or an old town. And that is where things happen. So I talked about those movies, and one of the movies that comes to mind is The Music Man. And it's such a great story. I love musicals, but I also love the nostalgia that movies like that bring with it. It is this little thread that connects people from the past all the way through to today. So that even when we see these old towns, we remember something, maybe from a movie, maybe from something our parents told us. The local government, the police station, the shops, the restaurants, everything pulled towards the center of the town. And that hasn't really changed. But 100 years ago, that center had a very specific character. In fact, the center of the town was sometimes I know in Andy Griffith, they have like this large tree that's there. I know in a lot of the older movies, like The Music Man, they would have this maybe a gazebo or some sort of park that would be the center of the town where people would gather. By the 1920s, the telephone was in widespread use, though not every home had one. The automobile had firmly replaced the horse and carriage, although I'm not really sure from this postcard. That shift happened so fast that a lot of people didn't even realize it. I imagine it kind of felt like our cultural shifts that we experience today. Maybe the difference in AI and just Googling something. But Winter Haven was this small town, It evolved from mud, dirt, maybe even sand in our case, into something more permanent, something that invited people to linger, to stick around, to shop. The businesses lined those streets were proprietorships. They were family-owned, family-run. The owner's name was often right there on the door, painted carefully, hand-lettered script, because sign writing was its own skill. If your grandfather, or at this point your great-grandfather, painted signs, I'd love to hear about it. Drop me a comment below. But right now, I want to tell you about my grandfather. Now, I did not know my grandfather. He died long before I was born, but I do know a couple of things about him, and I've done my own research on him as well. I have a book that used to belong to him. Here it is. Really neat book. I'm going to show you some of the pictures on the inside. It was from, I think it's from 1931. Look at that. Cool stuff. And it's called Practical Graphic Figures, the Technical Side of Drawing for Cartoons and Fashion. There's his name in the very front of the book. This is the only thing that I have of my grandfather's, and I think it's really cool because my grandfather, among the many different things that he did throughout his life, he also was an artist. He would paint signs and paint these like posters and billboards for people. It was not like what we do now where everything is digital and everything is either printed or like those digital signs and stuff, or have you seen those trucks that drive around with those digital like things that change constantly? Those are crazy. But back then they would draw these, and this was an art in and of itself, an incredible art. Well, among all of those things that you would find on Main Street, you would find people like my grandfather who would be painting on the doors, on the glass, directly on the glass of the front doors, what that shop was. It might have been a butcher shop or hardware store, and they would paint that on there and then put the name of whoever it was that owned that store. Might have been a general store, a tobacco shop, and the people inside those shops, they knew you. Not in a vague customer service sort of way, but they actually knew you. They would see you coming and be able to be like, I know exactly what they need today. They ordered it last month. They ordered it last week. Let me get it ready for them. They knew before you even opened your mouth. They knew your family. And when times got hard, which they often did, they extended store credit. They'd allow you to get what you needed and settle up when you could. That's not a small thing. In many cases, that was life-changing. These sort of things only come about with the idea or the mindset of community, of helping one another, of knowing who your neighbor is. The barbershop, well, that was really also a great place. It was where the men went, not just for haircuts, but to catch up on everything that had happened in the news, the gossip, the opinions on what ought to be done, about any number of things. It was a social institution as much as a business. At barbershops and beauty shops, the pharmacy, all of these places were gathering places, places where you could catch up with each other, where you could get to know each other. They would talk about, the latest recipe, or maybe the competition that was coming up at church for the bake-off, the new couple that just moved into town, the church social, the church dance, the news that someone's relative was coming to town from Ohio and would be staying through Easter. When Aunt Hattie wrote that postcard from Winter Haven in 1921, she wasn't just reporting facts. She was painting a picture of a life that felt simple and good. Roses in February, no stairs to climb, oranges, all kinds of fruits to eat, a lake nearby. That was Florida at the turn of the century, and it was probably your hometown 100 years ago. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but quieter, connected, and worth remembering. So how can we have this idea of Main Street? How can we maybe not go out and refurbish one of the buildings on one of these old main streets here in America, but maybe we can have the idea of a Main Street. We can learn from each other. We can have a little bit of Main Street in our own lives. Well, it's actually kind of easy. Once this video ends, put the phone down, turn the TV off, close the computer, and look out the window. What do you see? And more importantly, who do you see? Take a moment and find someone to talk to. It might be hard or weird at first, and you might be met with skepticism or even mistrust, but push past all of that and learn from each other. Who can you help? Who needs a meal or just some encouragement? It's about people. That is what Main Street actually is. It's about reconnecting and taking a moment to bring Main Street and the Aunt Hatties of the world together. Take your travel journal with you, have people sign it, listen to their stories, and write those stories down. I'm Beth Perdue, and this has been Forgotten Threads. I'll see you in the next one.